Morning, fellow zombies. It's 12:53 in the morning West Coast time. It's the 28th of August, 2024. We're John C. Roseman, California, coming across information that I talked about in the past of Rancho Vista, actually, Rancho Palos Verdes, having more of a danger regarding slides than previously discussed or even discovered. Apparently, during the summer, geologists have been probing, and I think with hydrographers, to see whether or not if the community can be stabilized, the water can be drained out, and slide could stop. Apparently, they found out no, it cannot. There's another hidden danger that no one counted upon until the geologists had discovered this through their own research and their own exploratory methods. That there's another unknown hidden fault, never been used or not recorded, that's more active than the shallower fault line. And it means that there is one they're worrying about up here, which is causing a downhill slide portions of the community. It's the one underneath that's got more issues. And nobody knew about this one here. Nobody knew about this guy here. They knew about this guy. With a lot of water on the fault line, with a lot of water making things liquid, making a little bit more slip and slide situations. It's the lower one, the deeper one that they found, that's even worse. I've been trying to research some of this information on YouTube on this. Trying to get some of the videos. I've gotten days old. Like about nearly a week old. But I hadn't got anything earlier than that except maybe 3 or 4 days. And then there was a report that came in from the LA Times a couple of days ago. I'll probably have to get that one put on there. Rancho Palos Verdes faces unprecedented new scenario over landslide danger. And what they're saying is, from this particular slide that they're calling, I can just get that information out here. They are going to do originally a long-term stabilization, as I said before. But the other one, geologists believe the deeper activity is the ancient Altamira landslide complex, for which movement has never been before recorded, according to one geologist. The shallower side does have fast movement, but the deeper slide is moving much faster. The priority becomes the deeper slide plane. And I'm reading this off of the article in the LA Times. Discovery only exacerbates the sense of urgency. Over the past few weeks, Southern California Gas Company shut off services to 135 homes in a landslide area, citing safety concerns from the worsening land movement. Soon after, Addison warned electricity could follow if conditions warrant. Many Rancho Palos Verdes residents are facing existential threats to their homes, such as cracked foundations, leaking roofs, shifting floors, and LA County Fire, it serves the peninsula there, warned it could take first responders more than 6 minutes to access some homes due to challenging road conditions. They're not kidding about that one there. They're still failing to come up with a plan on how to stop this thing, if they can. According to the rest of the article, this week a group of residents filed a lawsuit in state court alleging local officials, including the Homeowners Association, the area's water provider, city, county, and everybody else, failed to properly act, leading to an oversaturation of nearby hillsides that trigger the recent landslide movement. Our city's doing everything, but the problem is it's bigger than the city, according to the mayor of Rancho Palos, Verdes. Are they correct about it? I think so. Because once the water gets into the water table itself, once it starts absorbing into it, uh, oversaturation of it makes it, well, geologists would call it liquefaction. If there had been an earthquake in the area, uh, normally it would be sinking and slip sliding away. But since we're dealing with the topography of the ground as being at an angle, and not to mention if I happen to look at a thing again, shall we? I'm not a geologist, all right. I'm not. I have a dabble in a lot of things here, but I'm no expert in anything. But I'm trying to figure this thing out and trying to talk about it because to me it's still fascinating, terrifying, and things could happen like this all the time. And it's just how our world is structured, how it's constantly in change, constantly in movement. I don't care how many times we can try pulling a court issue at this point. If they don't know about it, there's nothing that they can do about it unless they already discovered the danger. And then what? People are wanting accountability over this damn thing. The problem is we're dealing with geology, we're dealing with bottomology, we're dealing with meteorology. We are dealing with forces of nature they're scared shitless over, to put it bluntly. Going over to Google Maps right now. So where I'm going back over to the peninsula and take a look at the damn thing again. So I want to take a look what I'm talking about here. Because there are maps on Google that I can actually look at that may give me an indication of what they're talking about concerning about how water is being channeled and how water is being stored. You have several communities in the peninsula area itself. Several of them. Some of them have their own policies of either storing or diverting the water away from everybody at this point. And this is going to be a hot button topic for the state of California, but it should be something to talk about to even federal legislators because we are dealing with forces that may be caused by global warming or natural geologic processes that even insurance companies won't touch because it is considered a force of nature. It is considered an act of God. Some policies won't even touch it, cover it. Companies won't even do that because it's too much of a risk. They're like a nice safe policy so they can continue to collect their damn dividends. But when it comes out for paying out on the policies, they pay pennies instead of dollars for the damn situations that need to be fixed. But they don't want to go bankrupt. That's the problem. We're dealing with geology and we're dealing with forces in nature are reinventing themselves, shifting things, shifting priorities. That it's freaking people out left and right. They don't like it. Well, I don't blame them. Dealing with this kind of force in nature, yeah, it would be terrifying as hell. So here I go, back to that little stub, actually that large ass stub. That houses both Long Beach, Torrance, and on this stub sticking out, several communities of the area. So I'm just going to put on the city layers and take a look at the darn thing. And here you've got Rancho, Palos Verdes at the tail end of everything. And on the northwest portion of it, you have Palos Verdes Estates, and then bottom southeast area, you have Rolling Estates rolling hills estates. You have those communities. You have hillside community. You have crumbling, rolling hill estates. I can just get the terrain going on. Looking at the terrain of it, I just switched over to the terrain map on this one. Yeah, I can understand their issues at this point. We've had droughts. We've had a major drought over the past several years. We're finally starting to get some shifting of water coming in. But even with the drought, we still have very thirsty ground. But down below, we've already had ground that's already been saturated enough. With a lot of heavier rainstorms that would move through, it would fill up the water table even worse, making it being worse than an old 1960s, 70s toy called Slip and Slide. How fun was that? And how fun was your backside and your butt on that one? Mine still tingles on that damn thing. It doesn't like it very much. But as a kid, you'd slip and slide on this damn plastic vinyl that actually had water coming out of it. It was supposed to have been fun back then. Not for an old fort like me. But looking at topography of it, where was the water supposed to go anyway? It was supposed to be going down hills. It was supposed to not being trapped. And if it was being trapped, then the tables were getting flooded out. So no wonder the hydrographers are having issues over the damn thing. And then find out there's 2 planes. Oh boy. Oh boy. If I was a map maker, I could probably tell you some stuff about it. If I was a geologist, I could tell you. Probably throw in a hell of a lot of terms and curves and everything else in the damn thing. An observer at this point, if the water was actually allowed to be channeled down through streets or through sewers or stuff like that, just going out to an area to get processed is one thing. Just getting the rainwater off the peninsula is another thing. But once that water's getting soaked in so much by the ground, it has a saturation point. And once it reaches that saturation point, this is where we're having the issues over it. That they don't know how to deal with it, if they can deal with it. In the top portion, they could try draining off with the hydrographers, but they'll have to drill deeper than that and maybe drain more water if there's any water out there. But if it is sliding, the only question is when is the place going to be sliding so much that there's going to be no recovery, and communities are going to be going off the map. That's the thing that would scare me the most, and that's the thing that scares the hell out of a lot of people out there. They got people out there who lived their lives out there, at least 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, they built up the place a long time ago, after when marine land closed down. And developers thought the area could be used for residential, so they built residential areas. And now, that's in danger. Of course, people are going to be screaming and yelling, how come they didn't know about it 50 or 60 years ago? About how did they know about it? Blah, 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 blah. And the only thing I can tell them at this point is our geology and the information of the area wasn't that complete, or actually wasn't that accurate enough back then. They didn't know. They did not know. And if they knew something about it, maybe there would have been different things happening, but they didn't. They didn't. So now they got to deal with the problem head on. Or they're going to have to deal with the problem of, if they can't get rid of the water, they're going to have to get rid of the people. One of them's got to go, in my opinion. And that's terrifying. That's terrifying. This is geology. This is geology at work. When I took geology a long time ago as a student, back in the 80s, we didn't have that much information. We didn't have that any information concerning about Rancho, Palos, Verdes. There was nothing happening back then. There were no slides happening except maybe a little bit of water trickling down the streets, and that's about it because of the slant of the place. But now they know more, and it scared the hell out of them because the more they know, the more they got to contend with, and they're pulling out their hairs. People don't want to leave, and I don't blame them. It's bad enough we get into fire situations in the state of California, or even in the country period, or anywhere else, that we have to worry about fires burning up watersheds, uh, fields get so dry that it's food for fire. And then after that, people had to worry about slides all over the damn place. And that was terrifying. Very terrifying. We've had that for decades out here in the state, out here in California, and in other places. But mostly I remember it out here in California because I focus more on it. And once we got rid of the watershed, once we got rid of the plant life that was holding the ground together and holding the water into the plant life, stabilizing the area, they don't have it in Palos Verdes. They don't have it. No deep roots out there to suck up the water. I got to deal with that in that situation. We get the rains coming in. They start making the topsoil loose, and it becomes a nightmare to deal with. It's months later that, with all the pressure and time on it, if there's enough water being distributed into the landscape where it becomes a slip and slide situation, then we see it happening. And we're wondering, how that happened? Why that happened? Well, months ago we actually had rain. Yeah, we did, but so what? Water went into the soil, went into the deep rocks, and mingled in with the rest of the groundwater over there, made it get oversaturated, and then slip and slide. Here we go with the real estate damages left and right, property damage, and potential human casualty. I'm moving off of the Palos Verdes for a little bit here. I'm going into the canyons, for the 5 and the 14 freeway area. We've had fires. We had fires in areas like this. What people are afraid of is also a lack of accessibility of escape routes. We've had massive fires happening throughout the summer in different areas that have burned off the watershed. We're getting into the wintertime seasons. Theoretically, we're supposed to be getting a lot of rain during this time. And it scares the hell out of me that once the watersheds are already been gone and the root systems are not quite soaking up enough water for a new plant to rise, you just have denuded area. Now, life is still trying to find a way to do that. But once the rains come in and there's no watershed to hold that moisture and lock it in and try not to oversaturate anything, we're talking slide situations here. We were lucky this season that we didn't have the fires along the 14 freeway corridor. But along the 5 corridor, yeah, we did. Gorman, Lebec, Fraser Park, up towards the Grapevine. Yeah. I worry about those areas. Hell, I even worry about the areas coming from Mojave into Bakersfield, right through the Tehachapi. I worry about that one. If I ever wanted to go visiting or actually live in Tehachapi, it's a nice, beautiful area. Even though in the wintertime it's beautiful. Problem is, it's hard as hell to get through the area. People moving there for the quiet scenery, and then they have the wildlife to deal with, but they also have to deal with lack of getting in and out of the area, accessibility. And if there are any natural or unnatural disasters happening in the area, they're trapped. But people do live in those areas. They do. We have had fires out here in the Antelope Valley. We've had them along the edges right by the Mojave and Tehachapi mountain ranges. But even in Roseman, California, where I live, we've had them in patches. But they had been taken care of. They hadn't been exploded into anything else. So we're lucky on that one. Out here in the Antelope Valley, we have to worry about mudslides. And we're also worried about flooded roads. Not everything is concrete out here. They still have dirt paths out here. And roads will get swampy. They will get muddy. They'll get gross and disgusting. Water seeps in, fine. It'll take it a long while for it to do it. If they're not going to get booted out by long, they have to have time for the ground to soak up the moisture. But we're lucky enough that we're not living in a plain area, or actually in a slope area, where we're going to be worrying about slides, except along the hillside areas. But the other thing that scares the hell out of me more is what if we actually had those kind of minerals out there, and I'm not kidding about this one here, that are dissolvable by enough liquid. I worry about sinkholes. We haven't had any sinkholes yet. Operative word, yet. Operative word, yet on that one. But just the mountainsides and the hillsides we have. In the areas I've already had fires in the past and currently, they're prone to mudslides. People freaked out about Topanga Canyon. They freaked out about Topanga Canyon last year up to this year. Because they didn't realize that even though the watershed wasn't holding the water sufficiently enough, and the ground was sloped, the water had to go somewhere. And so had the ground. Slip and slide effect. We had the Topanga Canyon the route through Topanga Canyon had to be shut down. From Calabasas all the way down to Malibu. Topanga Canyon State Park, or State Beach. The corridor that they had. It's Route 27. I'm still on the layered map. I'm still on the topography here. So the 27 stretches and winds and twists worse than our colons in our gut. Stretches from Woodland Hills, from Topanga Canyon Boulevard, for the north, into San Fernando Valley. And it has this twists and turns through neighborhoods and everything else. But it starts off by the 118 area on the Northern Territory in the hillsides. And that stretches from north to south. My brother and I had one time did this. We had taken a tour just for fun. You want to get out of the house and you want to take a look at things in the valley? What the hell? That's what we did. So, we drove. He was driving. I was just being a co-pilot. I was being shotgun. Uh, yeah, co-pilot. Emergency relief driver. I would drive if there was an emergency situation, and it would be a relief if I drove. Long stories on those, covered by other videos. If I look at topography, I don't have to look at the landscape. I don't have to deal with the city and building changes and landscapes and stuff like that. Even the stores, I don't have to look at it. Not that I'm wanting to, anyway. But once it reaches at the end of the corridor of the southern edge of the San Fernando Valley, then a long stretch until it reaches the hillsides and mountains. And then here we go with the wind. It goes up, and it goes down. It goes up, and then it goes down. But it still jiggles around. Driving this, I wasn't doing. Someone else would be driving this one, my brother. As he got older, he wasn't taking any chances anyway. But as a younger kid, he had grown into wisdom in an accident to realize that driving is dangerous. So he took it very professionally and very cautiously sometimes. But going through this area, there was a section out there. If I switch over to the satellite, a long time ago, there was a lookout point. Before we actually saw a bunch of houses in the area. And I remember this back in the 80s and 90s. We didn't have that much housing, if I remembered, in the Topanga Canyon, or even along that area. That we actually saw on top of a hillside. We were seeing the San Fernando Valley. We were seeing home at the time. And even the geologists who actually took us, there was a field geologist when I took a geology class back at Pierce College over here. Now, I know there's a Pierce College somewhere up in Washington, but I'm talking about the one out here in California. I'm talking about the one in the San Fernando Valley, part of the Los Angeles Community College District. We were able to see across the mountainsides, the hillsides, of the geologic features going through Topanga Canyon, seeing how things were a viewpoint. Without all these damn houses out here, we were actually seeing the valley like crazy. But it was along the mountainsides that when we were driving through it, that back then I was trying to appreciate it. I was trying to understand it. But they graded it so much out there that I don't know if the mountainsides actually had the features I wanted to look at. Or maybe they had. Computer and pictures don't exactly do it very well, but I remember seeing when we were going through Topanga Canyon, there was this hillside that actually looked like it was pockmarked. Pockmarked. It was the weirdest thing in geology I ever saw. You had these pockets, round egg-shaped pockets, oval shaped sometimes, of rocks popping off, leaving these indentations in there. But the rocks themselves would show how much changes through time they were. I wish I had taken pictures of these things. I didn't have the camera for that time. But seeing how the ground and the mountainside looked, even as I tried to get a tight shot on some of this stuff. One thing I have to say concerning about the mountainside and the geography and geology of it, I gotta say, throw a little bit of a terminology, medical terminology at you. You ever heard something called trypophobia? I didn't hear about it either until several years ago when I found some items that, with a repeated pattern, can actually cause some psychological weirdness inside of you. Either makes you feel stressed out, angry, wanted to run away, or throw up at the same time. I kid you not. I ran into that kind of situation when I was seeing all these computer generated images of repeated items that nature actually does to us. Nature, in its way, has these beautiful items that if you don't even think about the weirdness of things, but just take it at its beauty, what it's showing you, it's pretty damn weird. There's pine cones seedlings out there. Uh, we've actually had trees out here. They had these little round brown balls with the bulbs in them, and they're seed carriers, and they would pop off and distribute seeds to the ground. Sometimes birds would eat them. Sometimes there'd be enough to put into the ground, or otherwise the groundkeepers would get to them. And then you see the husk itself is full of holes in it, craters. That kind of reminded me of the geology where I saw the ground. Actually, I saw the hillsides full of these rocks. And the rocks would be smoothed by weathering. They would show layers of this rock just kind of squished together. They called them conglomerates. Sedimentary rocks, but if they actually had any other material in it, they'd call them conglomerates. But if not, it'd still be a conglomerate for the hillside anyway. But they were but they would look like rocky Easter eggs, weathered. Sometimes small ones, sometimes large ones. It was so freaky to see these things. Much freaky as watching or looking at a piece of lava flying from a volcano, and you happen to pick it up after it's way cool, like ice or something like that, cold enough for you to look at it, and you see the airy pockets inside. Much like looking at a sponge when you get it from the store. In the condition, I said something about trypophobia. The psychological weirdness about seeing these kind of repeated patterns does something to a person. And I've had that happen to me too many times when I kept seeing these photoshopped images that young people did to themselves to make them freak out everybody else. I mean, it was just the ugliest damn thing. I still can't get it out of my head. That kind of ruins the majesty and the imagery of what I had seen concerning about repeated patterns in nature on this. But I digress, so I'm going to have to do another video.